Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sarah Crowley, the Vice President of Real News PR and Real News Communications Network. I am so excited to welcome you to our broadcast today. This is a live in-studio audience broadcast. We're going to go to a wide shot and say, hi, everybody, welcome. Don't be shy, you're all here, and we're so excited to host you. We're here with the CEO Club, and I am just thrilled to be able to host this event here within our studios. We call this live digital broadcasting here with Real News PR and Real News Communications, and this couldn't be done alone. No, I've got Real News PR team members in studio, in our in-studio audience, and again, this is just, I am in a heart of abundance, you guys. This is so exciting. I wish you could feel my energy levels. I'm shaking right now. This is just going to be such a meaningful day. We have a lot to get started with, but first of all, let's welcome our in-studio audience. Here is Josh Hart. He is our Director of Operations with Real News PR. He will joke with you. He says he has a face for radio. No, sir, you are TV. Josh.
I would never say that on camera. Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Yeah, I do have a face for radio. It's okay. You're ready for 13 years. Part of what makes Real News PR special is that we hire people who have worked in the industry for a long time. So everyone you're going to see here today and talk to today, a part of Real News PR, has all spent several years in media itself. Our CEO, Jeff Crowley, has spent 25 plus years doing Fox 4. I did 13 years morning show radio here at iHeart. All of our video team is here, and they've all spent numerous years working for Channel 33, working in Florida, working in Amarillo, New York, all over the place. So we all know exactly what we're talking about on what it takes to get involved in the media. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough and talk with everyone and see how you guys are doing, how you're feeling. You get your chance to say what you do, plug your company. I'm going to start here with Mark, our fan favorite. Mark, how's it going, sir?
Thanks, Josh. Going great.
Tell me what you do, Mark.
I'm founder of Scaling Up DFW, so I help CEOs and their leadership teams instill the disciplines of excellence.
The disciplines of excellence. That sounds very intimidating to me.
Well, it's not intimidating. It's just doing the right things to create the habit that allows an organization to scale up.
That's so great. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And then how's it going there, Michael?
Hi, how are you?
Tell me what you do, Michael.
Sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of Hiring Transformed. And basically what I do is go into organizations very similar to kind of Mark's target audience at that 40, 50 people that want to double, triple, quadruple in size and help them set up their processes, their programs, their tools, and basically help scale up their recruiting and HR organizations.
What do you think the number one roadblock is for people who are trying to scale up and build up? I didn't ask Mark to do this, but I'm going to ask you.
Great.
What do you think the number one roadblock is to achieving that level of success?
In terms of growing?
Yeah.
I think it's getting in the mindset that you need to bring people in to help you, because a lot of CEOs want to do things themselves. As entrepreneurs, we're all used to doing those kind of things. So when it's time to bring people in to the organization, I think it really takes a lot of discipline on the CEO and the other C-suite to say, all right, we need to start, if we want to grow and get to where we want to go, we need to bring other people in to do those
That's
jobs.
awesome. Thanks for coming out.
Sure, thanks for having me.
There's no name tag. You're going to have to identify yourself.
Oh,
You took your name tag off.
I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, Trying to go incognito. Not going to happen.
Oh,
Not going to
okay.
happen.
Jaquetta Dantzler.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me what you do.
Okay, so I do a number of things. I am the CEO of the Office Hero, which is administrative service for small businesses.
Oh, great.
And so I love what Michael said, that as business owners, you cannot do it alone, which is why the Office Hero exists, to help business owners so they don't do it alone. We do all the back office stuff. And I'm also a speaker and author. I talk about purpose. I work with different business owners and individuals about walking in their purpose, and I have a whole lot of fun doing it.
Oh, well, I can tell your energy is at a 10.
Is it
You're
at a
talking about
10?
the things that you love
Awesome.
to do.
So did I make up for losing my name
You
tag?
did this time. It can't happen again, though.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Scout's
So
honor.
we're clear.
Scout's honor.
And then go ahead and tell me what you do.
Well, my name is Samina Huda. I have the name tag.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Check plus.
I got brownie points. I am a leadership and executive coach, and I also am a consulting partner with Mark at Rice Performance Group, which is an organization that really helps people to scale up so that their organizations can really reach their next potential. And I work from anywhere from hiring A players to really creating a coaching environment And then you talked about purpose, and this is our mantra that everything and anything starts with the clarity of purpose.
Yeah.
So we work on that. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. And then in
Absolutely.
the back, you thought by not sitting in the front row you'd get away from me. Not going to happen. Kim, tell me what you do.
So I'm the CEO and founder of Dragonfly Mind and the Power of E3, which is a networking event, and I help others find better ways of living in their personal life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now I have the great honor of getting to introduce our staff. I'm just going to hand the mic down. You guys announce yourself, say who you are, and what you do for Real News PR. Okay? You got it?
I got it.
Okay.
I think I can handle it.
Okay.
I'm Sarah Macias. I am a digital correspondent and a podcast producer here at Real News, and I love my job.
Great answer.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Goodis. I'm a video editor. I'm doing a little bit of podcasting and social media as well. Have my hands on a little bit of everything here.
Hi, I'm Sarah Strackhouse. I am a digital correspondent as well as our content production manager. So I help out with kind of all the content that we produce here. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back, Josh.
Keep it short and sweet. I like it. So on that note, without any further ado, our first speaker is Jeff Crowley. He's our CEO, our founder, the godfather of free publicity. There you go, Jeff.
All right. Honored.
Oh,
Okay.
You good.
Perfect. All right, guys. So I'm thrilled that you guys all came, and I'm just so blessed. I wake up every day with the same prayer: happy clients, happy employees. And Sarah Strackhouse, I'm going to point you out. She came in after 2 weeks off, and what did you say?
I said I was really excited to be back. I was talking about it with my husband this morning that I couldn't wait to get back.
Yeah, for those listening at home, she said that she couldn't wait to get back. And I've always said, I want this to be a thank God it's Monday company. And I really, truly believe I've achieved that. So let me tell you a little bit about myself and how this all began. It began with this book. I was a reporter at Channel 4 here in Dallas, the Fox station, and I decided that I wanted to write a book about publicity, how to get on the news. And so I wrote this little do-it-yourself book. Station said, you're not allowed to accept a speaker's fee. And at the time, I just assumed I'd be able to go out and get $100, $200 to give a speech, and they did me a favor by saying you're not allowed to accept a speaker's fee. I had to make it up in volume, so I ended up doing 300 speeches a year for 6 straight years, in addition to my TV job. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Fox 4. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Fox 4. I ended up selling 70,000 copies of this book from the back of the room while still a TV reporter. And the business was born because it's a how-to book, but so many people don't have the time to do it. So I kept hearing the same thing. Hey, Jeff, I don't have time to do any of the stuff in the book. Could I just hire you? And I'd say, no, I can't take your money. I'll give you free advice. And they'd say, all right, give me free advice. And they'd say, well, I'm promoting a book, and this is what the book is about. And I would instantly connect dots, and I'd say, well, that's easy. Call Cheryl Hall with the Dallas Morning News. She loves stories like yours. Your story is actually a rags to riches story, so emphasize the rags part. She'll like that. And then 3 days later, they would call me up and say, Crowley, you're a genius. Do you get the Sunday Dallas Morning News? Go out on your front porch and pick up the Sunday Dallas Morning News and see whose face is on the front page. And I looked at their face and I said, wow, some PR firm would have made money off of that. And I think I've got a second act. So at the ripe old age of 45, I asked my wife's permission to quit. And I walked away from a wonderful TV career, 25 years in the business, to this a great abyss of entrepreneurship. And I liken it to the difference between a lion in the woods and a lion at the zoo. A lion at the zoo is very well fed. He gets a steak every day at 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. A lion in the wild has to learn how to hunt. And fortunately, TV news taught me how to hunt, because I was having to charm people into dropping what they were doing and making time to be on TV. And so I never had a bad year. The company started with me in my home with a laptop and a cell phone in 2008. And now I wake up and we've got 20 employees and more than 100 clients, the largest being Walmart, the smallest being an entrepreneur at home. And I'm so incredibly blessed because along the way, I've always helped people tell stories. Of our 20 employees, 18 came from newsrooms, mostly TV and radio. And so we're all storytellers, and we have this wonderful privilege of being able to tell people's stories through a number of different channels. So I'm going to begin with showing you my very first client. My very first client is Clint David, who happens to office in this building. So I'm going to just turn to the monitor and let you experience maybe 20 seconds of Clint David.
Clint David, managing partner for David Goodman and the Dole.
But Dallas attorney Clint David says there's nothing to stop you from trying.
Trial watcher attorney Clint David says defense attorneys did show some of the government's case. Clint David has been...
All right, so you get the idea. He was on the news all the time. In fact, at the end of the first year, he called me up and he says, Crowley, I've got some good news and some bad news. I said, all right, give me the good news first. He says, you got me 500 media placements in the first year. 500. It could have been 700, but I had a firm to run. I said, what's the bad news? He says, dude, I don't need you anymore, because they kind of call me direct. And instead of feeling bad about that, I'm a pleaser, middle child, father's a minister. I love praise. And to me, that was the ultimate praise. He was speaking my love language. And I said, I like that feeling of working so hard and so well for somebody that I worked myself out of a job. I think I'm going to do more of that. And so as the team began to grow by adding journalists to the team, we're now able to promote just dozens and dozens of people on the news. Okay, what is the value of that? It's not like they're going to watch you on the news and then pick up the phone and call you instantly, but there's a cachet that is attached to being on the news. It's presumed if you're on the news, you must be a super expert. It's presumed that if you're on the news that you're honorable, you're reputable. And so Mark Finner, since you're in the audience, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. We're going to run a little clip. This is Mark being interviewed by a national television show based in LA. Let's roll a little bit of that.
To attract young, smart people who are now entering the workforce.
That generation is typically younger and more focused on having this so-called work-life balance.
You know, companies need to look at attracting employees in a way that's similar to how you attract customers through a unique brand, a brand that's unique.
And he looks great. He's actually in our downstairs studios. So he's doing this live talk back with a national TV show based in LA. It's presumed he must be a super expert. Don't they have experts in LA they could interview? Why are they interviewing Mark? Oh, well, he must be a super expert. And so by having that on his website, by having that in his outbound signature, Mark's media page, he's constantly reminding people, Josh from my team calls it a humble brag. The humble brag is, before we meet on Thursday, I was just interviewed on a subject that I think I want to talk to you about over lunch. It was a national TV show. I'm going to send you a clip of this national interview I just did, and let's talk about that on Thursday. It's a humble brag. Once people see Mark on the national news, they say, wow, they can never unsee that. It makes him, I call it, bigger, more important than you really are, right? So we still specialize in getting people on the news. In fact, I have one employee, Laura Martin, spent 28 years in news, and she sits there, and I joke that she watches TV for a living. What she's doing is she's responding to the news that is on the TV set. So when the stock market plunges or soars, she says, this might be a good day to get our financial advisor on the news. And she'll call up our financial advisor and say, hey, did you wear something nice? Do you want to be on the news? Okay, stand by. Hey, Channel 8, I know you're doing something on the stock market. Do you need a financial advisor? Okay, stand by. I got your person. Hey, Spencer, go down to Victory Plaza because you're going to be on the 4 o'clock news on WFAA. It's just a super aggressive way to get people on the news. It's not about press releases and trying to sell the media something that they don't want. You're basically selling the customer what they're buying every single day. So we've done that very successful for more than a decade. And then my daughter, I give her the glory for this, about 2 years ago, back when we were in Tower 2, Floor 5 at the end of a corridor and nobody could find us, my daughter comes to me and she says, Dad, I think we need to get into podcasting. And I laughed and I said, Sarah, podcasting? Who listens to podcasts? And she says, my generation, Dad, all those young people jogging on the Katy Trail listening to earbuds, they're not listening to music. And I said, all right, don't go crazy. Here's my credit card. Just don't go crazy. And so equipment started showing up at the office, like little GoPros and a board and some microphones. And then as I was giving the tour around our offices, I would point to the TV set and I'd say, we can get you on Fox, we can get you on CNN. And they'd say, you got a radio studio? I said, yeah, I got a radio studio. We can get you on Fox, we can get you on CNN. They're like, no, but let me see your radio studio. And they'd sit down, they put the headphones on, they'd start talking, and suddenly I saw that this little radio podcast thing was sexier than getting people on the news. And I thought, okay, well, if they like that, what if we moved downstairs, took over the lobby of the building, built lights, cameras, action, and basically made the Today Show in their studio. And by moving downstairs, adding a bunch of great equipment and new podcasting employees, a whole division, we grew it from basically 5 shows to now 75 unique shows a month. Those are completely different clients, all with different aspirations, different goals. So why would you want a podcast? So there are different reasons for having a podcast. One is just strictly marketing. I'm going to share my message with the world. Another way to broadcast is to have a business development show. And what I mean by that is if I meet somebody at a cocktail party and I think to myself, I would love to do business with this person. I looked at their watch, I looked at their shoes, I know they can afford me. If I go in the front door, it's a little too aggressive. It's, hey, do you need a marketing firm? And they're gonna say, no, I don't need marketing, I don't need life insurance, I just met you. It's a little too aggressive. So my ask is, hey, you need to come on my show sometime. That's fascinating that you grew your company from you and a secretary to now 20 attorneys. You need to come on my show sometime. It's called The Jeff Crowley Show. Come on my show. So I'm going to show a little clip because I have this amazingly talented team that puts together show opens and everything. And so I'm going to roll a little clip of The Jeff Crowley Show. And this is an example of what we do for our clients.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crowley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crowley Show.
Welcome to my show. We always like to talk about entrepreneurship, and one of the classic problems of any...
Let's go. The show is very successful for me as not only a way to market. I find that my guest is so proud of the interview that I just created that they're out there marketing for me. So I've never had a bad interview. I've never had a bad show. And on a really good day, I take them to lunch downstairs right after the show, and we begin talking about marketing ideas, and it often leads in a new client. That keeps me in my happy place. So I love owning the company. I don't like running the company. So my daughter does the day-to-day running of the company. She sometimes I'll check in the afternoon and say, how's it going? She says, great, Dad, nothing you need to know about. So I'm sure she's taking care of stuff, and it's not getting up to my level, and that keeps me in my happy place. It allows me to go out and be the evangelist for the company and the lead business development person for the company. As long as we're talking about business development as a tool, I want to brag on one of our clients. His name is Jay Young, and he does a show called The Jay Young Show. Note to self, when in doubt, just name it after yourself, right? The Ellen Show, the Oprah Show, the Howard Stern Show, it seems to work. So I'm going to show a little clip of Jay Young, who has an oil and gas investment organization, talking to Phil Romano from Macaroni Grill, Eatsy's, Fuddruckers fame. Let's roll a little clip.
Get a little bit of this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Got insurance?
I have insurance.
You might hurt my arm.
But man, is there any way? Oh my goodness, you are strong.
Wait.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah. That's a great. But I tell you what, you are strong.
All right.
Man.
When wrestling Phil Romano,
awesome.
let him win, right? So that's what I learned from Jay Young. But he's another example of when Jay first came to us, I said, hey, I can get you on the news. I can make you that person that they call on oil and gas things. But if I were you, I would do a show that is designed to attract the people that you will later do business with. If Jay Young tried to get an appointment with Phil Romano, who I believe is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, in fact, I think he says that in his book. Not only did he make a lot of money in the restaurant business, but he also invested in a heart stent company that was later bought by Johnson & Johnson for $600 million. So he did well. But if you can imagine, there's a line around the block trying to get his attention to invest in this opportunity or that opportunity. If Jay Young came in the front door, he doesn't get an appointment. They keep him away. They say, no, Mr. Romano is not interested in any oil and gas opportunities. He's fine. But Phil had just written a book called Mad Entrepreneur, and he was on a publicity tour. And so the request to interview Mr. Romano was routed through PR, and the PR department's job is to get Mr. Romano on camera. So that's how Jay was able to meet Phil Romano. Let me think about another clip. So on this very stage here is a show that we do at least once a week, sometimes once every other week. It's a show called The Bobby Ray Show. And The Bobby Ray Show is near and dear to my heart because Bobby Ray is a retired home builder. He sold his home building company to the Darling Home Company years ago. He cashed out. He's in his 70s. He's kind of bored. And he said, he called me up. He says, Jeff, I've got this itch that I just need to scratch. I said, what's that? He says, I want to be Jay Leno. And I had a light bulb moment. I said, you know what? You're in luck. You don't have to go to LA. You don't have to go to New York. You don't have to have an audition. You've got a show. We'll call it The Bobby Ray Show, and we can produce it from our new studios, and you'll be able to attract anybody you want to attract. And so among his first episodes, he interviewed Ted Nugent. So this is a clip of Ted Nugent teaching Bobby Ray how to be a rock and roll star.
Your left hand.
I'm left-handed.
Oh. Grab it with your right hand. You bet.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney was left-handed.
He was? Okay.
And you grab that like you mean it, and then you let it rip.
Go. So it's just, what about the moves?
Get them hips going, brother.
Yay.
Get them hips going like that.
Hey.
Come on.
Have we got any music to go with this?
Pretty damn sexy about
Isn't this awesome? And I see Bobby Ray growing in confidence every single week. It's his show. My daughter is one of his producers, and last week she came up with the great idea, let's do an episode about the Leaning Tower of Dallas. They did it just in time, and it was a great episode where they went out and they interviewed people who had come from all over the country to see this thing. But he's having a blast. That's not a business development show for him. He's not trying to get anybody to write him a check. He's just having fun. And I told him after he got Ted Nugent on his show, now you can get anybody. Because you can say, we've had everybody from Ted Nugent to, this person. Sarah, let's take a couple questions from the audience.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's start with John. And John is the CEO of the CEO Club. Hello, John. Welcome. Do you have any questions for Jeff?
I'd just like to thank Jeff, and I'm proud to be here today
with the best broadcasting studio and PR firm in the United States. The
Thank
CO
you.
Club is a worldwide organization with chapters in Boston, Baltimore, New York, Miami, and Dallas. I chair the Dallas chapter, and with about 15 chapters around the world. And we really appreciate being here. And Jeff, you do an outstanding job.
Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you very much.
Mark, any questions?
Yeah.
Sure. So Jeff, as you know, companies, industries are being disrupted, and one of the biggest challenges now with the internet and global supply chains is downward pricing pressure. And we know that companies value, or buyers value, organizations that are unique and valuable and are perceived as trusted advisors. I like to challenge my clients to the only viable, most trusted advisor. How do you think your firm could help people really develop more of that influence, more of that trusted advisor mindset in their respective industries?
So I think, and great question, thank you, Mark. It's all about storytelling these days. Even really large companies are constantly telling their stories. I look at some of the candidates who've been running for president. Those 30-second ads, what are they doing in those 30-second ads? I learned a lot of stuff about Michael Bloomberg that I didn't know. I kind of thought I knew, but I didn't really know until they put it into a 30-second ad. The difference between advertising, paid advertising, and news is your guard goes up when the ad comes on, and your guard comes down when the ad leaves and TV news comes on the screen. In fact, I got to tell you a funny story. I was at Channel 4, and Channel 4, it was cold and flu season, and those mics that you talked into, they were gross, and I'm sure there was all kinds of organisms growing in those mics. And I was starting to come down with a sinus infection, and I kind of self-diagnosed. I knew it was a sinus infection. On the 4 o'clock news on Channel 5, Brian Curtis was the anchor, and he says, a product called Airborne, invented by a teacher, it's kind of a vitamin supplement, is running out of store shelves. You cannot find this anyplace because Oprah recently featured the inventor of this product on her show, and now the cupboards are bare, and they showed empty cupboards where the Airborne should go. And suddenly, I became obsessed with Airborne. I had to have Airborne. So I started calling CVS's, and I had to call 4 CVS's before I finally got somebody at the 24-hour one at Frankfurt in the Tollway. I said, look, I'm a news broadcaster. I think I'm starting to lose my voice. I desperately need the Airborne. I know, because this employee said I have 2 left. I said, please do me a favor. Please just squirrel them away. I get off work at 10:30. I'll come by and pick them up from you. And as I hung up the phone, it kind of dawned on me. I said, you know what? Before that news thing came on, I had no idea what Airborne was. I didn't know that I needed Airborne. Had I watched an Airborne commercial, I would not have been obsessed. I would have said, it's just a bunch of hype. But because it was the news telling me that I needed it, suddenly I was obsessed. And I think that's a great example of why the news is different than paid advertising. Any other questions before we get to our main event?
Looks like we've got Sarah Strackhouse, and we'll go to a wide camera shot of you.
So I have a question. This is a question I've gotten a lot, so I'd love for everyone to kind of hear your thoughts. Why is the video aspect of a podcast so important, and why do video and audio rather than not just audio?
That's a great question. I think of our 75 shows, there's only one right now, I believe, that is doing it without video. Video to me is so intimate. I mean, how do you, radio is theater of the mind, and sometimes if a host is getting emotional, you can kind of hear it, but we've had guests get emotional on our show, and having that video there, it makes all the difference in the world. And as long as, it's the same price for video and audio together, or video and audio, or just audio. So I tell all of our podcasters, people want to know you. They want authenticity. They want to see who you are. And so what I'm encouraging all of our broadcasters to do is be real. don't try to be perfect. Don't try to be terribly scripted. With every single interview, reveal a little bit more of yourself. The late, great Kid Craddock was brilliant at the way he was able to take a little fight that he was having with his wife and turn it into a whole episode where you're, on the edge of your chair waiting to find out what happened with Kid and his wife because of this fight. And I applaud him, because before Kid started doing those kinds of shows, the whole radio industry was kind of filled with the same thing. It was kind of like a tell a joke, hit the rim shot, go to break. And Kid Craddock, I got a chance to know him and interview him several times when I was a reporter, and he shared with me something. He said, best thing ever happened to me was getting fired. I was fired at the Eagle. He was an afternoon guy who was doing tell a joke, go to commercial, tell a joke, go to commercial. And he was fired, and he sat at home for 6 months waiting for another opportunity, and he started watching soap operas. And he got sucked into the drama, and Kid Craddock, had an epiphany. Wait a minute, who is watching soap operas? The prime demographic that I'm after, women 25 to 40. If I ever get back on the radio again, I don't think I'm going to do the tell a joke, go to commercial thing again. I think I'm going to mix it up. And that's when he got back on the air and he started doing Kids. And I remember in the 90s, when everybody's listening to the Kid Craddock show, pulling up at a stoplight on my way into Channel 4 that morning, and I'm laughing. I turn to the person to the right, they're laughing. I turn to the person to the left, they're laughing. I said to myself, I think we're listening to Kid Craddock, all three of us. Because what are the chances of us all laughing at the same bit at the same time? And that was the magic of Kid Craddock, and he changed the industry. If we all took a note from Kid's notebook, be real, just don't try to be scripted, don't try to be a network anchor, just be yourself. That's what broadcasting's all about. Well, listen, thank you so much.
Awesome. I don't
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so
Dad, okay, so just real quick. You give me way too much credit, okay?
Take it, girl. As your publicist and dad, take the credit.
Well, let's talk about that for a second,
Yeah,
Dad.
yeah.
So I remember the moment when you called me and you said that you are going to start Real News PR. And at the time I was in high school, I was graduating in 2008, and it was a huge deal that I was going to move to Dallas. And I had visioned, okay, I'm going to be like my dad. I've grown up, I want to be like my dad. And so I was taking print radio and broadcasting classes in high school to just work myself up to, okay, what would it be like to be a TV reporter like my dad, my idol? You're a star. And I remember the phone call. It was right before I graduated, and you said, Sarah, how would you feel if Daddy wasn't on TV anymore? And you kind of choked up a little bit, and I was like, what are we going to do? Not be on TV anymore. What are we going to do?
What are we going to do?
And you go, that book I've been writing, and I remember the manuscript, and I'm going through the movie in my head of when you wrote Free Publicity, and behind the scenes, and I was, taking the books, and you're speaking, and all that movie is going through my head as you're saying, I'm going to start a PR firm. What's a PR firm? And you said something that I'll never forget. You said, doesn't matter, because we're going to redefine what PR is.
So as long as Sarah is revealing, let me reveal. I got divorced when the kids were very young. So my son was 5 and my daughter was 8. And I signed a divorce decree that basically said they couldn't leave the state of Michigan without their mom's permission. And for about 8 years, as they're growing up, we were only seeing each other 4 times a year. I mean, I would come up, I'd spoil you guys, and
It's my dad.
No, there was a time when I was going to the airport and Sarah's holding on one leg and Dallas is holding on the other. And they're saying, don't go, Daddy, don't go. And it just ripped my heart out every single time. And there were times when I would, like the little Disney film, I would look at a star and Sarah would look at a star and we would try to describe the star that we were looking at so that we could have that bond. And now I get to work with my son and daughter every single day.
So we're going to go to a break. Thank you, Dad. Wow. Thank you for this opportunity and to be able to lead this team and grow this company with you. I can't put it into words. Don't go away. We have so much in store for you guys. You know, we have a motivational speaker, so we're going to go to a bird's eye shot, and we're going to actually see our team move furniture and welcome on a motivational speaker. You know, she's going to sing. She's going to bring the energy level up.
I cannot wait.
No, but the energy level's so
Okay.
high right now.
Okay.
But I'm really excited
Okay.
because we're going to be able to, you know, really connect hearts and minds and souls here today. And thank you because you made this possible.
Wow. All right.
Okay, done.
Won't you lay your love on me? 'Cause I've been waiting all night. Won't you sit on down with me? I'll put you in the spotlight. Can we save ourselves some time from analyzing good manners? 'Cause I know in your mind exactly what you're after. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna bore me. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Don't care what you told me. I'm just feeling lonely. But I want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath. But I want you on my breath in the morning. We don't speak like them. Wrap everything in wordplay. We take what we want instead. 'Cause we're not after perfect. We don't live on thoughts. They only lead to trouble. You know what we got. We dive into the bottle. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna bore me. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Don't care what you told me. I'm just feeling lonely. But I want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath. But I want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Won't you lay your love on me? 'Cause I've been waiting all night. Won't you sit on down with me? I'll put you in the spotlight. Can we save ourselves some time my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I want you on my breath in the morning. Won't you lay your love on me? 'Cause I've been waiting all night. Won't you sit on down with me? I'll put you in the spotlight. Can we save ourselves some time from bad lies and good manners? 'Cause I know in your mind exactly what you're after. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna bore me. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Don't care what you told me. I'm just feeling lonely. But I want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath. But I want you on my breath in the morning. We don't speak like them. Like everything in wordplay. We take what we want instead. 'Cause we're not after perfect. Think your head on thoughts, they only lead to trouble. And you know what we got. We dive into the bottle. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna bore me. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Don't care what you told me. I'm just feeling lonely. But I want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath. But I want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath in the morning. Won't you lay your love on me? 'Cause I've been waiting all night. Won't you sit on down with me? I'll put you in the spotlight. Can we save ourselves some time from bad lies and good manners? 'Cause I know in your mind exactly what you're after. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna life. Can we save ourselves some time from allies and good manners? 'Cause I know in your mind exactly what you're after. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna bore me. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Don't care what you told me. I'm just feeling lonely. But I want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath. But I want you on my breath in the morning. We don't speak like them. Wrap everything in wordplay. We take what we want instead. 'Cause we're not after perfect. Clear your head from thoughts. They only lead to trouble. You know what we got. We dive into the bottle. These figures lying in my head got me tripping. I can make sense of them. Got me tripping. Oh, you're gifted. I don't know your story. Small talk's gonna bore me. I just want you on my breath in the morning. Don't care what you told me. I'm just feeling lonely. But I want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath. But I want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. But I want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning. I just want you on my breath in the morning.
All right, who's ready to be back on set with me? We're so excited. Our in-studio audience is here. I heard from behind the scenes that the coffee is flowing, and so we have a very lively bunch here. We're going to have so much fun. I do want to welcome a couple of our guests, my new friends on set. I've got Jaquetta and I've got Kim. Please come over here. Let's talk about our time today. Let's get to know you. Thank you. Welcome. Are you guys having fun today?
So much fun.
Here.
Oh, this is amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell me about your experience today and a little bit more about you and what you're kind of looking to get out of our message today with our speaker.
Awesome. So today has already been incredible, right? So I've already laughed a bunch, cried a bunch, and taken a bunch of notes. So that is a sure sign of a great event. And my favorite part is just really being able to be in a room with like-minded people and finding synergies and new friends and just different opportunities to get information from the speaker today. I can't wait to even hear her speak. I've heard so much good things about her. I'm super excited.
I heard she's going to sing us a song.
I heard she's going to sing a song. I told her, let me know if she needs a duet, but she said no. So,
hey, though, maybe we're going to be so inspired. We're just going to, we'll sing back up. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. And thank you for being here.
It's an honor. It's my pleasure.
Okay, how about you, Kim?
So this is an amazing event. I've met tons of friends, and just being able to listen to your dad actually share his heart, and when he says to share, your story, your personal story, and I was crying in the audience, but it really connects people when you do that. And this event's amazing, the CEO Club, and I'm just glad I'm able to be a part of it. And like you said, the food and the drinks are outstanding. So.
I think we need to do this again. Well, without further ado, I know that you will be introducing our guest speaker. Drum roll and studio audience.
I am so excited, guys. This is such an honor. I'm really excited to introduce to you Janine Stang. She is an awesome motivational speaker. She's known as the National Anthem Girl. She has sang our national anthem in all 50 states, y'all. All 50 of them. And she did this, yes, absolutely. And she did this to honor our brave. And we are just honored by her for doing that. And not only that, but she broke another record. In 2015, she sang the national anthem for 24 hours straight. So today we can't wait to not only hear her motivational talk for us and give us some really good tips and some good information, but we're really absolutely in awe of her singing voice and cannot wait to be blessed with it. So without further ado, Janine Stang.
This weekend, the nation celebrates 200 years of the Star-Spangled Banner. But tonight, we have the story of a woman who started the celebration a bit early, hitting the road with the intent of performing the national anthem in every corner of this country.
Performing our national anthem in all 50 states.
From Madison Square Garden to a street corner in Idaho.
One song, one girl, 50 different states.
Janine Stang has sung this song so many
Janine
times.
Stang is back because she has just completed that mission.
It's the only song for 90 seconds. No matter who you voted for, no matter what team you want to win, we are one nation. We have one song, and this is our song.
You are an awesome American.
Hello again. Well, again, thank you so much to John for having me, as well as this amazing company that I'm learning about. I'll just get right into this. You guys saw the video, right? So I've been a few places, sang the anthem a couple times, and it was a life-changing adventure. And I have a crazy story that goes along with pretty much every state. And I'll share some of them later on, but what I'd like to do first is share the things that actually led me to go on that mission in the first place. Because that involves a lot of speed bumps, a lot of roadblocks, and turbulence. So I feel like if I could share some of the things that I didn't see coming, it might help to make for a smoother ride for somebody maybe even here, right? So we're all here to learn from each other. It's kind of like that navigation app, Waze. Anybody use that app? Right? It doesn't prevent jams, right? But it does send alerts here and there, right? So hopefully that's what this talk does for some of you today, because each of you are on your own adventure, right? And if you're not, maybe this will inspire you to start or restart one. So I'm going to give you a little background, and then we're going to get right into it. I grew up on Long Island. My parents owned a bagel shop. My dad made the bagels. They're the best bagels you've ever had. People came all the way from Brooklyn to buy them. So if you know anything about Brooklyn and bagels, you know they were legit. And my mom ran the store. She was essentially my boss, or as I always like to call her, my own personal drill sergeant. Because she had a lesson and a system for everything. She was relentless. But everybody loved my mom. And I'm going to launch into 4 lessons that I learned from my mom growing up in that bagel shop. The first one has to do with work ethic. If she saw any of her employees slacking off, goofing off on the job, you would inevitably hear, "Hey, you got time to lean? Then you got time to clean." And she'd point to a stack of index cards. She had one for every chore in the store. Lesson number 2 is about character. And we had a lot of younger employees, even older employees, they'd all end up going to her for advice, life advice. And one thing that she would always say to them is lesson number 2. She'd say, establish your standards before you get into any kind of situation where you might compromise. Because if you compromise your values, you will ultimately lose. Or lesson number 3 is about fear. And she'd simply say, never let him see you sweat. She probably got that from a deodorant commercial, right? Regardless, my mom did not mince words. Once she said to me, and this is a direct quote, she said, Janine, you have the kind of nose that people can see right up. So you have to make sure there's never anything in it. I do not. This is a picture of my mom. The year that we opened the bagel shop is actually on my 9th birthday. We didn't open it on my 9th birthday, but that is from the year that we opened the store. And that is her resting tough face. Right? What you see is what I got. And I saw it all. Once this huge guy came storming into the store, demanding to speak with the owner. So she went up to the front and he went off, accusing us for unauthorized use of a dumpster. Now, I don't know what it means in this part of the country, but when you talk about people who own dumpster companies, I'll just say it was widely rumored, never confirmed. This guy was in the mafia. That didn't faze my mom. Once he finished his tirade, she calmly looked at him and said, well, we're not using your dumpsters. So what do you want to do now? You want to break my kneecaps? He became a regular customer. My mom was great with everybody, customers, employees, the mafia. But there was one group in particular that she had a soft spot for. Those are men and our women in uniform and their families. I don't care how busy she was. If she saw there was a parent or a grandparent of a child who was deployed, she would stop whatever she was doing and ask them how they were. And she'd actually listen to their answer. And if somebody came in the store in uniform, forget about it. She made them feel like $1 million. And she'd always say to us, lesson number 4, is talk is cheap. Don't just say you care, show you care. And with that, I'd actually like to ask, I don't know, does anybody here with us serve or maybe have a family member that is serving or has served? Anybody? Oh, well then stand up so we could, it was your father, that still counts, family member served. So if you'd stand so we could recognize you for your service and your dad's service. What branch was he in?
He was in the Army.
Nice.
Out of Fort Jackson.
Nice.
And then went up to, when he met my mom, they moved to Recipient. There was some point up there that he served.
Wow, okay. Well, there you go. Well, thank you, and thank him from all of us, right? So when people hear that I grew up working in my parents' bagel shop, I usually hear things like, oh my gosh, that must have been a dream come true, endless bagels. Well, every weekend, every holiday, every summer vacation, and you guys don't have a lot of these here, but every snow day, my brother Fred, my cousin Vinny, and I, we were up at the crack of dawn, mopping floors, cleaning grills, restocking inventory, making egg sandwiches. I perpetually smelled like an everything bagel. And let me just say, I hated it. And I took every opportunity I could to let my mom know how I felt. Now, I'm sure I could have gone off, gotten a different job anywhere else in the neighborhood, but to borrow a line from The Godfather, you never go against the family. Now, the real reason why I despised working in that bagel shop was because I was better than bagels. Now, I'll have you all know that I was destined to be a singer. And not just any singer, one with shelves of Grammys, dozens of world tours, and my own line of perfume. But there was just one thing that stood between me and this future of fame and fortune. There was the fact that I could not sing in public. I was the shyest kid you'd ever met. My performing debut did not come until I was a freshman in high school, sang the national anthem, ironically. And I wish I had a better story for you, but when I took the microphone and began to sing, I was trembling so badly that I clenched onto the microphone so tightly. When I finished, I could not open my hand. It was stuck. They probably thought I didn't want to let go of the microphone, but really, it was nerves. And how did I sound? Well, people avoided eye contact with me for about 5 weeks, so go ahead and draw your own conclusions. And as a result of that, I was mortified, traumatized by that experience, petrified to get back out in front of people until I was introduced to a new perspective. As a high school senior at that point, and we had an assembly. Anybody remember the high school assemblies? We had a guest speaker. His name was Mr. Valentine. And I can't tell you everything he said through the entire talk, but at the end, he said something that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. And he said, within you is the ability to do exploits, something uncommon with your life. And you don't have these gifts and talents for yourself, but you have them because the world needs them. Wow. I thought of that before. I was so consumed with my talent or lack thereof, right? And then he challenged us. He said, I want you to go home and I want you to write down those things, those exploits that you will do with your life, and the ways that you will use the platform that success gives you to help others. So that night, I went home, made a beeline for my diary. And for the first time, I would write down and see in black and white that I would become a world-renowned singer, just like Faith Hill. And I would use that platform to help others, just like Princess Diana. I got Faith Hill, Princess Diana, right? I got my whole life set up. I'm going to have a show on MTV Cribs, right? And by doing that, I got to say, I Jedi mind tricked myself into facing my fears. Was I instantaneously cured of my paralyzing stage fright? Of course not. But I was determined, or maybe a better word was obsessed, to get to this point. Every once in a while, through the years, my mom would see me getting a little bit off balance, and she would try to temper me. She wasn't trying to squash my passion, but she'd say, Janine, your talent is not just for fame and fortune, I'd say, yeah, I know. But in the process of working through those fears and, trying to have this lavish life, came the development of a phrase that I said so many times, and it would lead to so many problems. What was that phrase? It said, don't worry about it. When I make it big, then I'll give back. Sounded nice, right? But if you were able to put my words and what I was saying on mute, which my brother, if he were here, he would argue that it's completely impossible. But if you were able to do that and just watch my actions, they were screaming something completely different. It's like, make it big or bust. A couple more years would go by, and I would have the opportunity to record another album. This time it was out in Los Angeles, so I took off clear across the country. It was going to take 3 months, and here's how it was going to go. I was going to write the songs, get a deal, and go on tour. Bing, bang, boom. Right. Anybody want to guess how that went? Well, 3 months turned into 5 years. I was that girl, isolated myself on Long Island, alienating myself from everyone, trying to make it big, right? Now I was lost in Los Angeles. Back in high school, I was clenching onto a microphone so tightly that I couldn't open my hand. It was stuck. And now as in LA, grown woman, is clenching onto other things. Things that on paper make no sense. Frustration, confusion, exhaustion. And my life was stuck. In fact, this is what I looked like. I couldn't see it. This is pretty much the position I was in. Anybody ever feel like that? Anybody know anybody that looks like that right now? Well, what do I attribute this stuckness to? Well, I say it had a lot to do with the power of my when-then statement. What was mine? I'd say, when I make it big, then I'll give back. Now, what's a when-then statement anyway? What I say is it's an all-access pass to a comfort zone or a procrastination party. Call these things whatever you want. These statements are really easy to come up with. And the comfort zones that we find ourselves in as a result are really hard to realize you're in one. And if you try to get out, they're exponentially more difficult. Why? What I say is when you start to stir around and you're trying to get out of one, maybe, you're immediately faced with two things at the exit. What are those two things? Your fears and your doubts. What I say, if they were people, they'd look like these two guys. And in order to get past them, in order to get past your fears and your doubts, It's a risk. You got to take a risk. You might have to create a habit. You might have to edit a goal. You might have to have a tough conversation with somebody. Maybe that somebody is yourself. And that is not something that we all wake up saying, oh my gosh, that is what I can't wait to do today, right? So instead we run away looking like him, right? And we're backing ourselves away from the brink of potentially life-changing change, checking the life that we were meant to live at the door, coming up with these seemingly innocuous when-then statements. And we do things. You know, we have these behaviors that we're using these when-then statements to defend. Maybe we're going to become a super hard worker. That in itself is not necessarily bad, although everybody likes to say work smart, not hard. But if you're doing that and saying things like, you know, when the office is less hectic, you know, when all of my employees like me, or things like that, then I'll spend time with my family. Things you just don't realize, but the when part, if it's really ambiguous, you know you have a really good, or technically bad, when-then statement, because it keeps you oblivious of the fact that you're in a comfort zone. Another behavior that you may be defending by saying these when-then statements is you become super helpful. Again, in itself, not bad. But if you're saying stuff like, you know, when everybody else is happy, then I'll start taking care of my health, right? Or you become a hermit. You know, when I feel like it, then I'll start going to the gym. Or a hypercritical. I need to apologize to any cat lovers because I didn't mean to put the cats with the more negative of the behaviors. But anyhow, when people respect my ideas, then I'll start contributing more, right? All these things, what do they keep you doing? Well, I believe we were made to move mountains. Anybody believe that? Well, these when-then statements, they just keep us going around and around in circles, you know, taking the scenic route. Speaking of going around in circles, taking the scenic route, back to me, lost in Los Angeles. There was actually one thing that was happening that was actually great. I think it was by sheer probability of me trying all different things, throwing everything up against the wall like spaghetti. But I was getting asked to sing the national anthem a lot, and I loved it. I got to interact with our military and our veterans. I got to hear stories about their service, many times see with my own eyes the things that they sacrificed as a result. And bonus, whenever I'd call home and tell my mom about these events, we never had an argument. She was happy to hear about it. And a momentum was starting to build in that direction. And it was about that same time that I would become acquainted with the truth of another phrase. That's life can change in an instant. For me, that instant came in the form of a phone call. It was early April 2011. It had me back on Long Island from LA the very next day, and I would be there for months. Turned out my mom had breast cancer, stage 4. And from that point on, I would be with her for every pill, every needle, and every puke. There's an interesting phenomenon that occurs during these instantaneous life changes. That's the fact that all these seemingly insurmountable things, you know, those business meetings that you just can't cancel, you know, maybe it's something simple like the Netflix series you can't stop binge watching, or the relationship that you're in that's sucking the life out of you and everybody around you, but you know, you just don't want to rock the boat. What happens to all those things during those instantaneous life changes? Sidelined, trivial, not important, right? How does that happen? Is that magic? No. It's called a paradigm shift. I was having one of my own in January 2011, just 4 months before this huge crisis hit my mom's health. She and I were in the car. I visited New York for the holidays. She was taking me back to the airport. And about halfway through that trip, she just burst out in tears, essentially begging me to take a few steps back. Look at the big picture. What was the real reason why I moved out to LA in the first place, right? Return to my why. What she was doing was pushing me towards the exits of my comfort zones, and I could feel the hot breath of my fears and my doubts breathing down my neck. She was asking me to take a risk that I did not want to, so I just clutched down onto the things that I was so used to clenching on in my comfort zone, and I wielded my when-then statement in a way that I was so proud of myself for at the time. I shut her up. I said, Mom, you were crying like somebody just died. I told you, when I make it big, then I'll give back. Made me feel better. I was in my own world, right? Couldn't see beyond it. But just 4 short months later, I'd find myself in a whole different world. One where time was no longer a luxury. My mom was coming to grips with her own when-then statements. One time we were sitting in the living room on her green leather couch after a particularly tough day of chemo, and we were watching the Food Network. She loved watching that. It never made sense to me because she couldn't keep anything down, but she loved that show Chopped. Anybody know that show Chopped? I think she had a crush on Bobby Flay, so don't tell my dad. But anyhow, during a commercial break, she turned to me and she said, you know, whenever we went to nice restaurants, I'd always want to order the lobster on the menu. But I'd always say, you know, when there's a special occasion, then I'll order the lobster. Had I known this was going to happen, I would have ordered the lobster. 3 days before she passed away, we were in that same living room. This time she was no longer sitting in that green leather couch, but she was lying in a hospice bed, barely able to move or speak. I'm sure some of you have been around people during the last moments of their lives. But for me, my mom seemed like she was completely exhausted, but she was hanging on for everyone else. And I did what I never thought I'd have to do for my mom at 59 years old, but I wanted her to know that it was okay to let go. So I went up to her, I took her hand, and I said, Mommy, no matter what, you won. I wasn't expecting a response. But with what seemed to be every ounce of strength that she had left in that now 70-pound body, she lifted her index finger and pointed at me like she always did whenever she was about to dole out some life lesson and said, no, we won. My mom was like Yoda, right to the very end. In fact, the last 3 words that she ever said to me, never forget me. And when she said that, I was like, Ma, you know, how could I ever forget you? Yeah, we fought like cats and dogs. But at the end of the day, she was my best friend. Now, looking back, knowing my mom, she knew I could never forget her. What I believe she meant was never forget the lessons that I lived to teach you. Any of you have kids? No, you have kids. Do they ever make you feel like you are talking to a brick wall? Don't stop talking, though. I promise you, no matter what it seems like, they are listening. Now, Theodore Roosevelt once said, do what you can with what you have where you are. And in the weeks and the months following my mom's passing, I was kind of doing that. I was thinking, you know, what could I do now with what I have left from where I am? I was no longer thinking of Grammys, world tours, perfume lines, make it big. You know, what did that even mean? Remember I said, you know, you have a good when-then statement when your when is really ambiguous? What did that even mean, right? But because I shifted my focus off of myself and I was thinking, what can I do now? I started to think out of the box a little bit. I said, you know, started to think of the anthem, how it made me feel, and how it always made my mom proud. And it dawned on me that, you know, I sang the anthem in a few states. So I started to wonder if anybody ever sang it in every state. So I did what we all do when we're trying to do some major research. I Googled it, very good. And I was able to confirm it had never been done before. That became my marathon. And my mission would be simple: use my voice to honor our nation's heroes. And the incredible thing that happened during that entire 2-year journey is every lesson that my mom drilled into my head, whether I wanted to hear it or not, it came back front and center, like she was coaching me the whole way. So what we're going to do now is review some of those lessons and just see how they might apply to other parts of our life. The first one was, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Some of you need to take a picture of that and send it to, I don't know, some of you people in your family take it literally, right? But for me, what that meant was systems and structure. The girl that used to make fun of her mom for all the index cards now had them for herself. because I had to make sure I actually reached all 50 states, that I didn't miss an interview or sending some information out about what I was doing. I had to make sure I did this. And it's important to think of some of the things maybe in your own life. You know, you have different ideas. Like Jeff was saying, he had this idea to come up with this company, right? If he had all these creative ideas, but he didn't have the system or the structure to support it, this place would not exist, right? So it's important to take some time to check your structures, check your systems, see if they're actually working or if maybe they're outdated. Another lesson number 2 is never let them see you sweat. It seems simple, but if you notice, she didn't say never sweat. The important thing to remember is that fear and doubt, they never go away. But what's important is to continue moving in spite of it. And as you get successful, I'm sure, Jeff, you probably have a lot of friends now that you've got this business, right? You guys in your own world and your business. Towards the successful part, everybody wants to be your friend, right? For me, the end of my journey, everybody wanted to interview me, Today Show, Fox, everybody. But for the first 47 states, people thought I was nuts, you know? And I sometimes thought I was nuts, but I just kept putting, even though I was trembling on the inside, nothing changed from that girl holding the microphone trembling, except that I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And that's for one of you here, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Don't clench onto those things that keep you in comfort zones. With every step that I took, with every state that I checked off, the mission became bigger than me, became bigger than my fears and my doubts, and a heck of a lot more interesting than my comfort zones. And another lesson, if you compromise your values, sure, it may seem okay for a little while, but you will ultimately lose. You know, when I started the mission, I said it was going to be about our military, our veterans, and that was it. And as publicity started to circle around my mission, I was getting a lot of other opportunities, but things that did not line up with the core values of this mission. In the past, I would have done everything, right? But I did not want to lose. This meant too much to me, and there's a key in that. You want to always have these missions that align with your core values, because at the end of the day, you will not fight tooth and nail to make it happen if it doesn't line up with who you are, right? And because this did, even though some of these really nice silver shiny objects came my way, I did something very interesting. Guess what I said to some of those other opportunities? Very good. No, you are like my favorite person over here. I think you've been to some of my talks before. So what I would like to do now is ask all of you, you have a postcard on your seat. On the front, it's do what you can with what you have where you are, but on the back, there's a when and a then. And I'd like to ask all of you to write what your when-then statement is. Write the one down that makes you a little bit nervous if the person next to you actually looks over. And I would encourage you to really write this down. And remember, the when is extremely ambiguous. It's something that you just kind of like say, oh yeah, when this happens, when I feel like it, when my husband acts like he's, gonna clean the house for me, whatever. Things like that just don't happen, right? Sorry, Michael. But go ahead and write that down. Take about 10 more seconds. And for the watching audience at home, you could do the same thing. I can't give you a postcard, but you could write down your own when and your then. Everybody pretty much done? Anybody need more time? So now what I'd like you to do, now that you've written your when and your then, we're gonna kind of like draw, the phrase draw a line in the sand, right? But go ahead and make a dividing line between your when and your then, just like that. And when you've done that, just put it on your lap so that it sits that the only thing you could see is your then. Make sense? And for another 10 seconds, for a moment that's all your own, I want you to pretend that I waved some magic wand and that when just completely was satisfied. You became the biggest PR firm in all of Texas, right? Or your company is now, like, everything is running perfectly, or your relationship is exactly how you want it. You have all the money that you ever wanted, right? Anything like that. And just focus on the then. Live in that moment for a couple of seconds. What does it make you feel like? Maybe you'll think of some ideas, and feel free to go ahead and jot a little bit down that might come to you. Maybe you need to change some of the structure that you have in order to make that actually be feasible. You can keep writing. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep talking, but feel free to keep going. How did anybody feel? Did anybody feel like a little bit, maybe some of you might have been thinking of some of your fears and doubts right away, or maybe some of you getting a little excited, like, oh, wait, I never thought about this, right? What you're doing is kind of poking around your comfort zone. Right? And even just by doing this simple exercise, and I would continue to do it even for a longer amount of time later on today, commit to doing that, what you'll start to realize is there's a whole new world out there for you beyond your comfort zone. Wow, short-circuited. Okay, well, I will get off that side quickly. When you realize there's this whole new world out there for you, no, I'm not going to start singing that song, it starts to be a little bit more liberating, right? And for me, that experience was quite literal. I got to see America. I was like Forrest Gump, running all over the country, right? Real quick, we'll do a quick fun review. I got to sing at NASCAR, every major sports league. I went ziplining, skydiving with the Army's Golden Knights. I got to drive this Coast Guard cutter. Nobody threw up or fell overboard. I was very proud of myself. I got to fly this T-34 over the Beartooth Mountains. I sang on stage with Elvis. Not this one, the one that lives in Wallace, Idaho, but I always like to post that picture because they always crop me out of it. I got to sing at Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60, for a Gold Star Family Memorial, one of the most difficult performances ever. You know what a Gold Star family is, right? And I got to sing aboard great battleships like the Missouri, the Midway, and the Iowa. And 200 years to the day, Francis Scott Key was inspired by our brave to write what would become the lyrics to our national anthem I got to sing in his line of sight. Now, I have to say, I think this happened. I don't even think if I had 5 PR teams working for me, this could have possibly happened. It was because I walked out of my comfort zone and all these things started to change. But I sang at the foot of the flagpole of Fort McHenry, and then the Coast Guard took me out to the location that Francis Scott Key was 200 years prior, when he saw by the dawn's early light that our flag was still there. And I got to meet Americans. A friend in every state. And it was during the interfaces that I had with different Americans from all walks of life all over the country that I started to realize the importance of my mom's 4th lesson, which was, don't just say you care, show you care. So up until that point, I'd been singing that I cared, right? But I wanted to challenge myself a little bit more and say, how could I show that I care? So after my performances, I would invite people to write a note of gratitude to our deployed military. I started providing these thank you notes, and I gotta tell you, that became the highlight for me of that mission. I loved it. I was interacting with all these different people, hearing all these different stories, but also I was giving back, right? And I was actually helping other people do it. I collected thousands and thousands of these letters. And the interesting thing is, I was giving back, but I had not made it big. And I didn't care. And I think there's a lesson in that for us. Sometimes we're so concerned with the order of things, right? You don't want to put the cart before the horse. But some of us, we got to check the horse. It might be dead. beating a dead horse. And during those interactions at the tables, it ended up that I met my friend Cliff, a 92-year-old World War II veteran. He stormed Normandy on D-Day, and he never stopped serving. He told me during that conversation, State 47, Kentucky, that every morning he'd read the obituaries, and when he saw a fellow veteran passed on, he'd call their families, total strangers, and offer to give the eulogy. Now, in my opinion, Cliff, he passed in 2016, is a shining example of someone simply doing what they could with what they had where they are. And the ripple effect, the impact that he had on his community and me was profound. Because after I finished that mission of all 50 states, I was thinking, well, what would Cliff do? Would he just stop there? You know, he served in World War II, okay, I'm good. No, he wouldn't have stopped. So I said, well, I've got a platform, a lot of people following me on social media, and I'm on the news a lot. What can I do? So I started something called Janine's Team. And I'd invite any of you that like to join to text USA to 33777. And it's basically, instead of me being at events where I have tables for people to write thank you notes, I send an email out when I find out about a veteran or military family that can use some encouragement. I send you an email, give you the address, and you take a couple minutes and you write a card from your heart to them and let them know how grateful you are for them and that they're not alone. Right now, we are smack dab in the middle of the 4th annual Medal of Honor recipient mail call. I invite people from all across the country to adopt a Medal of Honor recipient. Companies do this, classrooms do this. We've collected over 12,000 letters last year. And this year, I'm actually housing it here in Arlington, Texas. They're starting the Medal of Honor Museum. It'll be built in 4 years, but I've partnered with them now so that these letters, some of the recipients, after they get them, they might be like, I want that one on display. So that's what we're doing. So more information on that if you want to know, ask me later. But what I learned from leaving my 2 corners of the country and going all throughout it, meeting people from all over, all walks of life, is that America is beautiful and Americans are beautiful. And I know you could tune in to any news station and think that the whole world is coming to pieces. But as somebody that got to see the whole thing, that's not true. And if you'd like to actually watch the entire journey, it's on Amazon Prime. There's a film crew that started following me in Kentucky and then later on said 2 years later, hey, is anybody doing a documentary on your story? I said, no, I don't know why anybody would want to. And they said, we want to make a documentary. So they did a really, really good job. It's not about me, it's about all the people that I met along the way. And you get to see what I saw and meet the Americans that I met. They asked me when I told them, oh, I tell people to watch it, they said, well, you asked them to review it too. I said, yes, but I will amend that statement and tell them if you watched it and you liked it, you can review it. Otherwise, don't bother. I have DVDs as well. If you like DVDs, they're for sale for $10, and a portion of the money actually goes to our veteran organizations. So what I learned from a leadership perspective, fear is not that scary. Comfort zones, they are not that comfortable, nor are they worth the time, the care, or the attention that we like to give them. Closing, what was my when-then statement, when I make it big, then I'll give back. Did I make it big? Oh. Not according to my definition as a teenager. Did I finally begin to give back? What I learned is that mountains will move when your paradigm shifts. Now, I'm not talking about some big Herculean effort to move a mountain, like a physical mountain, but what I talked about today, and hopefully what you started to think about and understand, is sometimes these changes in our lives, all they require is taking a few minutes to take a few steps back, looking at the big picture, returning to your why, seeing things for what they really are and not what people tell you they are, right, through your life. But actually taking a moment to say, what is what I need? What is something that I'm passionate about? And following that. Not waiting around oblivious in some comfort zone, waiting for something ambiguous to happen, right? It's not a good look. Why? Because within you and you and you, and you, and you, and you, this is easy, and you, and all of you, is the ability to do exploits. Something uncommon with your life. And we know that you can't do that from a comfort zone, right? And some of you are looking at me like, oh, you know, you learned that while you were in high school. Well, I gotta say, you're a good-looking group, and I wouldn't think any of you are more than a couple years out of, you know, maybe college, right? But if that's you thinking, you know, this was a nice talk, very good, I got a when-then statement that I gotta work on, whatever. If you're thinking, no, exploits are no longer feasible, I came prepared with one more lesson from my mom, Patty. What she would say if she were here is one more lesson, lesson number 5, but wait, there's more, right? She'd say, it doesn't matter if you start small. What matters is that you start today. How? Well, you all wrote down your when and your then statement, right? We're going to do something called the mountain toss. So if you'd all not mind standing up, now that you've folded and you made a dividing line between your when and your then, I'm going to take one last look at your when. The thing that's been holding you back, this ambiguous thing that's kept you bound in a comfort zone, away from what you really, really should be doing. And when I count from 3 to 1, don't do this yet because it'll wreck it for the video. You're going to rip your when away and throw it in the air. We'll apologize to whoever has to clean up after us later. Okay? So take one more look at your when. What's been holding you back? 3, 2, 1. Give yourselves a round of applause. You just moved a mountain. And go ahead and have a seat. And now what I'll ask you is, what's left? Is it your comfort zones? Is it your fears and your doubts? Or maybe is it your whole new world? Some of you might have discovered or rediscovered your mission. Now go order the lobster. Thank you so much. And feel free to follow me on all my social media.
All right, hey guys, I don't know if they serve lobster downstairs.
Is it time for lunch?
You crushed it. You crushed it. No, this has been an amazing event, and we really would like to treat you all to lunch downstairs at Crockett's for those of you who can stay, including staff, and just celebrate this wonderful event. You guys are awesome, and I love the energy that's been in this room all morning. And thank you for blessing us with your presence. I think you're awesome. Yeah. Sarah, I'll let you have some. I'll love you.
Hey, so this has been so fun. So thank you all to our live streaming audience. A round of applause for our live streaming audience who tuned in today. And we actually have another event happening here at 4 o'clock. It is a Be Bold event, which is empowering you to be bold. So you will see us again here on live streaming in a few hours. And we're going to feature some people sharing reasons to be bold and how they're being bold for 2020. Thank you guys so much.